You are listening to the So Now What podcast with Lana Manikowski, episode number 115. Well, here we are, the start of a new month. I cannot believe that February is here already, but there's a couple things that make me really excited about it. If you are somebody who started out January being totally gung ho about all these things that you wanted to do this year, all these things that you wanted to keep in your forefront and in your focus, what a great time to take an evaluation of those things. Are those the things, once you got into the meat of the year, were those really the things that you wanted to do? Were these really the things that in your soul and in your heart aligned with who you're wanting to be this year? And if they aren't, let's talk about just letting go of that stuff. Because if you know anything about me and know anything about my theories of coaching and how to manage your life and become aligned with who you want to be in your future, I think it should be really something that's fun to do, not something that feels like a heavy lift, not something that you've got this love-hate relationship with. So let this be the start of your month that you're going to drop anything that doesn't feel like it's totally something you're passionate about accomplishing. And if you go back to the episode I did I want to say it was like late December, early January. I don't remember which episode number it is, but we talked about choosing goals in a way that feels really easy, starting with the things that are really fun to do, the things that maybe don't feel like such a heavy lift, and like micro dose your goals out and see what you can accomplish by starting from that mindset instead of thinking that you've got to carry the burden of something on your back in order to be the version of yourself that you want to be. So, as we start a new month, and it could be every month we do this type of evaluation, but let this be your start of February in your way of evaluating what it is that you want to be and who it is you want to be just this month. So February, I'm wearing red if you're watching me on YouTube because we're going to talk all month about relationships. Yes, because it's Valentine's Day, and yes, because I love red, but more importantly, because when you think about relationships, when you've gone through fertility treatments and haven't ended up becoming a mom, there's a lot of relationships that change and relationships that maybe feel uneasy or you feel like your footing just isn't where it used to be before your infertility diagnosis. So this whole month, we're going to talk about those different types of relationships, how to manage them, how to maybe reinsert yourself into a relationship, and what those various relationships are and who they're with. So, we're going to talk about relationships with your partner, your spouse. We're going to talk about relationships with friends, maybe friends with kids, maybe friends without kids, maybe family. And you have family or family members who are getting pregnant or recently had children since you've gone through fertility treatments and you're just not feeling sure how to manage those relationships. We're going to talk about relationships with coworkers and colleagues when people are coming in on Mondays and talking about all these things that they've done with their families, and you feel like you're kind of on the sidelines of the conversation. Because relationships, what I've learned and what I really want you to consider is that relationships change. I think that we have this vision, and you might understand, like thinking that your best friend from elementary school and high school has to be your best friend for the rest of your life. I think that there are many people, and you might agree with this, that think that relationships have to last you a lifetime. And if they do, that is awesome. And many of the reasons relationships last a lifetime is because they become fluid. And the way that your friendships, maybe the way that your marriage, maybe the way your role that you play in your family changes and it becomes more fluid. And those things adapt to who you are now. Because a lot of people are stuck on the relationships and the friendships and the love and the passion and the intimacy in your relationships always has to be the same. And if it changes at all, there's this like freak out moment that people have that things are changing. But what if the change is good? What if the change in your relationships bring you an opportunity to either open up to more in that relationship or maybe know that that relationship, that friendship, that communication, the way that that person has shown up in your life, maybe that circle is closing. And what if that doesn't have to be a bad thing? Or maybe the relationship is open to changing its form and its frequency and its style of communication. And what if there's an opportunity for new relationships to become formed? And that's something that we'll talk about later this month. But finding new friends when you're childless, that's a whole different conversation. I was out to dinner just on Monday with some girls that aren't historically part of my friend group, but we've become connected through different people, and we all went out to dinner together. And I we talked about, like, as you get older and as you are somebody who doesn't have kids, it doesn't mean that you can't have friends that have kids, but maybe you can start finding new friends that don't have kids. And that's why I started my meetup group. My meetup group is nearing 500 women in just the Chicagoland area who want to hang out with other women who don't have kids. And that doesn't mean that all of us have to be besties, but sometimes it's just nice to go to a place and meet new people that you know aren't going to be asking you about how many kids you have or, you know, things about, what you do on the weekends with your kids or how old your kids are, like all these random questions. And that doesn't mean that finding new friends and creating new friendships has to replace old ones. But if we tell ourselves that we've always got to be in the same friendships, it's kind of boring. I mean, I think about it. You all know me. I love clothes. I love fashion. When I go into my closet, sometimes there's clothes that are my go-tos. There are my clothes that, like this shirt that I'm wearing today, I've probably had this 5 years and I love it. It's this beautiful, soft velour, cozy shirt that looks super cute, dressed up or dressed down. And when I go into my closet, it's probably going to be a staple for a while. But there are times when you want to cycle out your clothes. I clean out my clothes. I have a consignment shop where I sell a lot of my clothes that I've cycled out, and those move on. Those go to somebody else. Like, what if relationships were the same way? You have some that you hang on to and you wear them different ways. You interact with them in different ways, but you know that you want to keep them in your closet. And then there's maybe some that you're ready to move on and pass on to somebody else because either they don't fit you anymore, maybe those clothes or those relationships aren't your style anymore. They're not reflective of who you are in this version of your life. And being okay with that makes it much less dramatic. So this month, we're going to focus on those areas, on those relationships, how to manage them. And if you want to retain them, let's figure out a way to retain those friendships and your relationship and maybe reignite the interactions you have with your partner or with your husband or with people that you want to keep in your life, and maybe figure out a way to make that relationship start forming a new type of connection for you. Because if things never change, they get really boring. So it doesn't mean that you've done something wrong or you're unrelatable because you're childless now, and you're less than, and the things that you bring to the table are not as exciting. Or when you think about being intimate with your husband, it just seems like for so long the intimacy was really focused on whether you were going to have a child or not, and things were timed and they seemed routine, and they seemed like being intimate became an order from the doctor instead of something that gave you connection with your partner. So tune in this month and let's get rolling on creating relationships that really feel good again. And before I let you go, I want to tell you that I started my advanced grief certification in post-traumatic grief. And I'm going to be reaching out for people to help me with my practicum hours. So one of the assignments that I have is to coach women who are feeling grief. And if you know anything about how I think of grief when you are childless after infertility, a lot of people don't recognize that as grief because we haven't physically lost something. At least in my circumstance, I was never pregnant. I never had a miscarriage. So when I became childless after infertility, I was grieving a dream that I had. And so these are the type of things that I want to talk about and why I'm going and pursuing this advanced certification. So one of the things that I need to do, my instructor is going to be wanting us to submit some coaching so that I can be evaluated. So this is something I am going to offer you free coaching with me. And if you could be somebody who would be willing to let me coach you as I'm getting stronger in some of these tools, I would love to have some volunteers to help me submit some coaching to my instructor for evaluation so I can continue to get better with my coaching in the area of grief. So if that's something that you would be willing to do, I would so appreciate it. Send me a DM on Instagram at lana.manikowski, or you can email me at hi@lanamanikowski.com, and we'll find a time that works for us. I just need like 30 minutes of your time for us to just, have an open and honest conversation about some of the ways that you are feeling grief in your life. So I would love, love, love if you would volunteer and help me with that. Otherwise, my first class of 2024 in Thrive After Infertility is starting tomorrow. I am so freaking stoked. Some amazing women in this round of Thrive. And if you thought about doing Thrive this go around, sorry, I can't talk right now. If you thought about doing Thrive and it just didn't work out for you, I want you to know that I would love to have you in a future class. I would love if you just thought about how you want to really thrive and feel fulfilled, even though you didn't have the children you dreamed of. And Thrive After Infertility, I'm changing things up this class. It's going to be different than I've done in the past. As I've grown as a coach, I want to continue to grow in the approach that I have. So this class is going to be much different than my last classes. And so I would love for you to join us the next round of Thrive. Also, the Others Day is coming up May 11th here in Chicago. If you're thinking about coming in, book your ticket. Saturday, May 11th, we are going to have the brunch. I am going to be getting you details very soon. I'm finalizing the location, but it is going to be somewhere in downtown Chicago, of course. Beautiful, elegant, well catered, well champagned. If you know me, you know that those are my things. And I want you to be there. I want you to meet other women who are childless, not by choice, other women who maybe feel discomfort or sadness around Others Day. Because, the mission of the Others Day is not just for women who are childless. It is also for women who maybe don't have a mother anymore. Maybe they never had a great relationship with their mom. And when they go down the aisles of Target and they start to see all the Mother's Day hoopla, they feel just really disconnected. And that is what the Others Day brunch is for. So book your ticket if you are out of town. I do have a wait list, so I would love for you to get on that. So reach out to me if you want to learn more about the Others Day brunch. But most importantly, I want you to know that it's never too late to discover your meaning. So I love you and have a beautiful week. I'll talk to you next week.